setting Hermosy as the example of output and work ethic. The dude's written multiple books. They're a private equity firm, right? But underneath all of that is like an insanely profitable coaching product. I'm doing the math while I'm in there. There's 100 people in there. That's $500,000. Then they've got 3 levels of ascension and upsells after that. A baseline one for $35,000, and then another one from there, which is $135,000 a year. Damn, man, like, how are you getting this much done? Potency and level of focus. So 40 hours in a work week. If somebody's so locked in and not even getting up to go to the bathroom, for example, and just cranking on those things that they're supposed to do and getting it done, as opposed to somebody else that's like, go get a coffee, then I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna work for a little bit, and then, oh, I'm gonna check my phone, and then, oh, I'm gonna check my email, and then, okay, maybe I work for a little bit more, and oh, I'm gonna go get a workout. If you do 40 hours of option A versus option B, it's gonna put you in a very, very different place from a getting things done standpoint. The other thing is duration of work. So it was pretty clear that everybody there is working on the weekends as well. And if you take that extra day, that's 4.3 extra days in a month. If you're channeling productivity and using that time correctly, you're just getting more volume. So think of it from like a content standpoint. What's the game plan? Volume and consistency. Well, if you do that with the amount of work you put into something, you're gonna get more out in less time. Or not less time, but it's gonna take you a shorter amount of time to get there because you're putting the time in. Another takeaway is, are we focusing on the right problem? Using the theory of constraints to identify the thing in our business that if we improved would have the most impact on the rest of the system. And it's this idea of you're only as strong as your weakest link. And this is the theory of constraints from the book, The Goal, Eli Goldratt, which most of the acquisition.com seminar was sort of built around on the theoretical side. And the idea is, if we use the metaphor of a factory, your factory's output is determined by your bottlenecks. So if you've got a machine that only cranks out 10 widgets, even though the rest of your factory has the capacity to do 1,000 widgets, that one bottleneck is the thing that determines the throughput. Turning inventory into sales is determined by the bottleneck. So your goal is to increase the capacity of that bottleneck. Simple example could be if one machine does 10, if you doubled that machine, now you're doing 20. Or if you can't double it because it costs too much, how can you make sure that that one machine is always running? So instead of, you might find that, hey, you can go from 10 to 12 if you staff it differently and you've got all hours of the day. That's a 20% lift in the overall capacity and throughput of your business. We're focusing on the right problem, and we're able to be really potent and have a high volume of our work and the time that we're spending. That's going to increase our chances and de-risk the business that we're going to get where we want to go. And the last thing is, can you be consistent for long enough? So can I do this for 3 months and stay locked in like that? Like, it's easy to journal about this and be motivated and, okay, cool, I got the whole plan, right? But can you execute? Instead of, say, journaling, like for me, can I just sit down and start doing the work that needs to be done? Like, the answers and the solution are in the work I need to do, not thinking about the work. Can I just do that, right? So if we step back and we look at just kind of this overall personal framework, if the goal myself is to get as much output as I possibly can to advance my business, to give me a better chance of success, and to de-risk or have insurance against this not working out, what's the quality of my time? Am I focused? Do I not have distractions? Am I doing it for long enough? Can I increase the volume of time that I'm spending at that work? Then it's like, am I working on the right problem, which you want to make sure that you're doing at the top before you get into all this stuff. So am I working on the thing that's going to have the net, biggest impact on advancing the business? So for me, that's been sales and marketing, running these advertising campaigns, which I have been really focused on. And then can I be consistent for a long enough duration to let that work compound? And so if you step back now and it's like, yeah, okay, this sounds super obvious, but way easier said than done, because everybody knows when you kind of get into it and you start working or whatever, like, there's like release valves and other things that sort of come into the way, interruptions and things like that. And then you would look at like, all right, if I were able to do this for a long enough period of time, like what would be the impact of that? Like I would fucking crush it. Using a picture of Hermosy up on my desk, just hovering over me with a menacing look, is just going to be a reminder of like, okay, I know that dude's grinding. When you're running your own business, there's nobody over me telling me to work harder, telling me to do more. Like, it's all self-motivated, which is great, but it's also, if you're that type of person, but it can also be pretty hard sometimes, like just to have that extra level of accountability would be like pretty nice. So you just have to be that much more disciplined. And frankly, that's that much more intense. Like Hermosy's fucking intense. I love that. And when you can just direct that intensity back on yourself from like a coaching standpoint, from a discipline standpoint, not saying every entrepreneur has to be this way, but like that was a really powerful takeaway for me. The roundtable sessions that you would have, where you would break out and talk with people on their staff that are running their portfolio companies, affirming for me, because so many of the things that they were talking about and doing, like I was already doing, I was already learning, already had experience in. Like I felt like I could answer some of the other attendees' questions based on like what they were asking, because I'd been there, done that. And then you realize too that the people that are running these sessions are doers as well. They learn the stuff by going and doing it. This is another like key unlock, where I'm just like listening to all these other business owners ask their questions. Maybe it's a staffing question, maybe it's a marketing question, maybe it's a strategy question. And then the leaders would answer the question basically with something like they dive in and figure it out, and then they do the work, and that's how they found the solution. It was never like, oh, I read this book, or oh, I asked this person, or oh, this person gave me the unlock. It was always like they dove in, they got obsessed about the thing, they were working on the right problem, and they learned what to do through that, and then they came out the other end with the knowledge on how to do that. And so I think we all want an easier answer, like not a magic cheat code or something like that. Like nobody's really expecting that, but it was like they did the work on the thing that needed to be done. Like the answer was in the work, and all of those people that were asking the questions are gonna be able to find it because it's here and here, but are you able to just simply do the thing? Q&A section where people would give you a card, and if you got it, you could get up and ask Hermosy anything. I didn't get a card, so I was like, ah, damn. So we're like sitting down, getting ready for the Q&A, and then a guy walks up and he's like, hey, did you get a card? I'm like, no, unfortunately. It's, oh, here you go. Gives me the last one. So I'm like, oh, let's go. So I'm sitting in the back, getting ready to ask the question, and I'm like, freaking out. I don't really know what I'm gonna say. Like, damn, I don't wanna blow this opportunity. I got 100 other people watching. They're all business owners. Like, what do you do? And so one guy goes, pretty good question. Next guy goes, completely like flops, botches it, and kind of like relieves some of the pressure on me to think, and like I got to make this a banger. And it was an interesting back and forth, but it was just like, all right, that was just not that good. And then everybody's asking like tactical questions on like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I basically took it and I was like, okay, so everybody here is going to go home with their bottlenecks, their things that they need to work on. But how do you constantly deal with the fear of it not working out, with the level of uncertainty? Like, where does the faith in the overall process come from? Because I think honestly my bottleneck is like, can I hang in this long enough? Can I keep sustaining like, the money that I'm making that is, not what I would like to be making. Would love to be making more, right? And building this thing into something that generates a lot more money, either through a sale or through just income through and profit through the business. Like, can I hang in there long enough to get there? How do you deal with that dark side? And you could kind of feel the energy in the room go like, Zhoo. And he was like, all right, let me be real with you. He's like, this last year has been the hardest year of my life. And I believe that life is suffering, and that there will always be suffering no matter what happens. And that at 19, he said, I just wasn't happy. I couldn't be happy. So I made it my motto to say, fuck happiness, and I'm going to be useful. And if I can't be happy, then I'm going to be useful, because if not, what's the point of all this? And like, I was like, shit, bro, like that's heavy. I didn't say that out loud, right? But I thought that in my head. And he just kind of kept going, like all the different tiers and stuff in his business of levels of success. Mind you, this guy sold one business for $46 million cash and still kept equity in that position, and then roped that into other, firms. Like, this is a legit successful 32-year-old, 34-year-old. And thinking like, damn, is the price of this level of success, the external, success, is that being unhappy? And I was like, in your conversations with your mentors, is that everybody's operating system? Like, is that the cost of success? And he was just like, look, everybody has their own philosophy. And if you've got one that works better for you, like, great. But for me, being useful is what's been the driving force, and not happy has been what's been the driving force throughout all this stuff. But he's like, honestly, like I lost 17 million bucks this year. And when I inventoried the last like 8 years of my life, this has been one of the hardest ones. And so like at the end, I just was like, hey, just so you know, like you've made an incredible difference on a lot of people's lives here. And I just want to say thank you for that. And then I sat down, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, cause that was a question, that was a topic that nobody was talking about. It was all tactical. It was all strategy, which I get. But the reality of this stuff is like behind all that stuff, like keeping your helmet on straight, keeping your heart in the game, not freaking out, having faith, learning how to have faith. Where does that thing come from? And how do you deal with all the uncertainty? Like that's a huge component of entrepreneurship, and the unknown and the uncertainty. And so when I was thinking about my question, I was thinking about other people in the audience, obviously what I wanted to know as well, but like what's something that we haven't really covered that this is the perfect platform to do it? Obviously I'm biased, but I was like, okay, we fucking crushed that question. And then a kid I was talking to came up to me at the end. He was like, dude, question of the night award goes to you. And I was like, that was intense, huh? He was like, man, that was so good. I was like, dude, I know. I wanted to just keep going with him, like, cause we were eye to eye, and like the whole audience is kind of like watching and a part of it. I want to be like, why are you so sad? Why was this the toughest sort of, years? But I didn't really get the chance to do that.